I still don't understand how Polish socialists still exist. Socialists have persecuted Poland probably more than any other country in history. In August of 1939, the National Socialist and the Soviet Socialist decided that they were going to split apart Poland together. It was no longer going to be a sovereign nation. Then they both invaded in September of that year and held a parade to celebrate their victory. Germany ended up occupying about half of Poland, about 21.2 million people, and the Soviets occupied the eastern part of the country, about 13.2 million people. In this occupation, between 5 and 6 million Polish citizens lost their lives, and this was mostly civilians, not soldiers. After the war, the Allies decided that the Soviets could keep the eastern part of Poland. The Soviets decided that they were going to force Poland under their economic system, and a few years later, the economic reform started. They started doing things like nationalizing the businesses, and this didn't work out very well. The socialist policies did not do what they were intended to do. As usual, GDP growth slowed to one of the slowest in Europe, and Poland was actually a pretty poor country, so you'd expect their growth rate to be much higher than average. In 1950, it was about as poor as Spain, Portugal, and Greece, but they grew at twice the rate. And of course, the socialists also turned Poland into a tyranny. They had something called the State Security Service, which had over 30,000 agents. These agents were so strict in making people toe the party line that a third of the adult population of Poland were on suspect lists. If you got out of line just a little bit, you were a suspect. Things did get better briefly in the 70s. They finally saw incomes going up and growth returning. But this was only temporary. It was done because of foreign loans. By the end of the 1970s, they were experiencing mass shortages of basic goods. People were getting in huge lines just to get basic necessities. They were given ration cards that they could use to exchange for various goods after standing in line all day. In 1989, Poland was one of the poorest countries in Europe. The average Pole earned less than $50 a month. That was 1/10 of what the people made in West Germany, the capitalist West Germany. Poland was actually poorer than the other communist countries. Its shelves were emptier. It was more exploited than they were. Poland was almost in a uniquely bad situation. But today, Poland comes in 25th place in disposable household income per capita. That's pretty good. How did they get there? Well, I'll tell you what, it wasn't socialism, but we will talk about that in the next video. In the meantime, you can check out my source, the book How Nations Escape Poverty. You can purchase it through the link in my bio. It gives all the references and citations for the statistics and goes way more in depth on the history.